Hi, I'm Dr. Wendy Bohan, and I'm an earthquake geologist. I'm doing a video series on earthquakes in all 50 states, and today's state is Illinois. There are three major areas of seismicity in Illinois. There's the New Madrid seismic zone, which runs up the Mississippi River Valley and just barely touches the southern tip of Illinois. Then there's the Wabash Valley seismic zone that runs between Illinois and Indiana. And finally, we have the St. Genevieve seismic zone, and that runs from southeastern Missouri into southwestern Illinois. Now, you can have earthquakes anywhere in Illinois, but these are places of concentrated seismicity. So let's talk about each of these. I've done a deep dive already into the New Madrid seismic zone, so feel free to go find those videos to learn more about that area. But in brief, the New Madrid seismic zone is the most seismically active part of the United States east of the Rocky Mountains, and it hosted a series of really large earthquakes in 1811 and 1812. Now, the Wabash Valley seismic zone is an area that doesn't have as much seismicity as the New Madrid seismic zone, but has about a third of the rate of earthquakes there. So the faults in Wabash Valley seismic zone are mostly vertical, like this, and they're normal faults, so they slide kind of like that. They're covered by layers and layers of sediment, so they're not visible at the surface. Okay. Now, the St. Genevieve seismic zone is an area that's relatively sort of newly discovered, and it has about the same rate of seismicity as the Wabash Valley seismic zone. So interestingly, the Wabash Valley seismic zone may actually be kind of a northern extension or a northern branch of the New Madrid seismic zone. So let's talk about some historic earthquakes in the area. The first earthquake that was recorded by settlers was in 1795. The largest earthquakes that we know of that have been felt in that area were the earthquakes that happened in the New Madrid seismic zone in 1811 and 1812. They were felt across Illinois, and in fact, they were felt through most of the central U.S. and along the East Coast. And in fact, let me look at my notes. John Reynolds, who was the fourth governor of Illinois, wrote about those earthquakes, and he recalled in his 1855 autobiography, and I quote, that the entire Mississippi Valley shook violently during the 1811 earthquake and its tremendous aftershock the next morning. Chimneys were demolished in the American bottom, and church bells rang as the buildings shook. He also noted that there were lots of smaller earthquakes that were felt since those, and those would have been the felt aftershocks from those big earthquakes. So the largest recorded earthquake in Illinois happened in November of 1968. And that was a magnitude 5.3 earthquake in Hamilton County. It was about 120 miles east of St. Louis. There was another large earthquake there in April of 2008 in Mount Carmel. That was a magnitude 5.2. It did some minor structural damage, and it was felt from Nebraska all the way to West Virginia. So this is a map showing the seismic shaking from that particular earthquake. And interestingly, that earthquake occurred about 20 kilometers away from a magnitude 5 that happened in 1987. So here's a map showing other notable earthquakes in the area. Okay, there's usually about a dozen or so, half a dozen earthquakes recorded in Illinois every year. Most of those are too small to feel, but once in a while, those are felt by people. It usually makes the news because it is a little bit unusual, although definitely not rare. But usually it's interesting to the people around there. According to the Illinois Geological Survey, about every 20 years, there's an earthquake in Illinois large enough to do some minor structural damage. So Illinois is definitely earthquake country. If you feel shaking from an earthquake, drop down to the ground, take cover underneath a sturdy object like a table, and hold on until all the shaking has stopped. Don't be scared. Be prepared.